take me back to how you got into the brewery and alcohol business.
My dad opened up a liquor store, by chance privatization of retail liquor in Alberta, and they did very well, and I worked there. You're learning sales, negotiation, everything about rent and landlords and marketing and HR and finance. I did payroll for my dad's business. I didn't know what I was doing, but I learned it for sure. That was the foundation of the rest of my life.
What are some of the things that you look for in founders in new companies?
So we're betting on the jockey, not on the horse. That is something that we are always looking for. Are you coachable? Will you handle our money, our reputation, our teams well? Do you know what you're good at and you know what you need help at? And are you somebody that we really feel can get through the ups and downs, especially the downs and the challenges of being an entrepreneur?
There's a lot of fear right now with banks on lending. There's concerns over everything from tariffs.
Where there are challenges and obstacles, there's always opportunity. Some of the greatest businesses were built in tough times. And I think that most people forget that, right? When they're building businesses. My life and one of my mottos is that, fear is temporary and regret is forever.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Jerome Dwight, and today I'm joined by one of Canada's most accomplished entrepreneurs and trailblazing leaders, none other than Manjit Minhas. She's the co-founder and CEO of Minhas Breweries, Distilleries, and Wineries, a business empire that spans 45 U.S. states, 16 countries, and which has sold over 15 billion pints of beer. With over 250 million in annual revenue, Manjit is a force in brand building, marketing, and business strategy. You may also recognize her as a longtime dragon on CBC's Dragon's Den, where she spent 10 seasons investing in some of Canada's brightest startups. She's also a top podcast host, a dynamic keynote speaker, and a philanthropic powerhouse, raising over $100 million for causes across Canada. Whether you're building a business or just looking for real-world inspiration, this episode is jam-packed with insights you won't want to miss. So let's go. All right, everyone. I am so excited to have arguably our most popular guest on our show. We've had a lot of CEOs, founders, VCs on the show, but we've never had a dragon. And I'm delighted to have Manjit on the show, not just about her, to talk not just about her, time on Dragon's Den, but more importantly, her life story, how you started from humble beginnings and just have achieved so much in the business world, in philanthropy. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jerome, and I'm excited to be your first dragon.
Yes, Manjit Minhas, you have an incredible, inspirational story, and we're honored to have you. So I want to jump right into it. I love your start, like the starting point, which came from, the family business, your dad, the influence of your parents on your role. So take me back to, how you got into the brewery and alcohol business, and what led you to get into that business early on.
Yeah, so just like anybody's life story, it's never a straight line, and it doesn't always seem to make sense when you're in it. My parents are immigrants to this country. My mom came at 9 to Vancouver Island. My grandfather worked in the sawmills in Duncan, BC. My dad came at 21. My grandfathers knew each other to marry my mom. He'd done an engineering degree in India, in Delhi, and it wasn't recognized when he got here to Canada, but he really wanted to be an engineer. And so he got in at the U of C and ended up doing almost 3 years of a mechanical engineering degree. He graduated in 1980. It was boom time. And he got a job in the biggest oil company in Calgary. And so I was born that year too, 1980. And so my brother and I, who's a year and a half younger than me, had a typical middle-class upbringing in Canada, in Calgary. My mom then was a stay-at-home mom, and we enjoy life in Calgary. But then, just like anything in many sectors, energy especially, it was bust in 1993, and my dad was laid off. And so it was definitely no prospects in that industry in Canada for him, especially in the West. And he didn't want to move to the Middle East like many people in droves were doing, as they do when there is nothing in the oil and gas sector. Things have diversified now. It's not as boom and bust like it used to be. It definitely was, though. But my dad opened up a liquor store. By chance, privatization of retail liquor in Alberta occurred that same year. Actually, weeks after his forced retirement, let's say, for the energy industry. And so he opened up 3 liquor stores, not right away, but in the next couple of years in Calgary. And they did very well. And I worked there as a essentially family business, I want to say. Obviously, I was only 13, so I definitely had no say. But I learned a lot, and I think that was the foundation of the rest of my life, which I never really appreciated back then, obviously, because I was young, but also because you don't understand when you are younger or in any phase of your life that when you are a fly in the wall, meaning that when you are sitting someplace and I might be studying math or reading a textbook, you are absorbing everything that is happening around you. And there was a lot happening around me for sure with my dad owning those businesses. You're learning sales, negotiation, everything about rent and landlords and marketing and HR and finance. I did payroll for my dad's business. I didn't know what I was doing, but I learned it for sure. And so I think that I tell people that all the time, take the opportunities that aren't just paid opportunities, that are opportunities to absorb information, physically be in a space where things are happening around you, because you never know what you observe and what you pick up. And I didn't think that entrepreneurial path would be my path. I have definitely what had bust come back up again. And yes, I am still, from an Indian family, and I was made to be good in math and science. So, I thought I was going to be an engineer too. I will admit, I first thought I'd be a doctor, wasn't smart enough to get into that. The second option was engineering. And so, I will say, convinced myself for sure that was the path to, and I was told by everybody around me, the corner office, a 9 to 5, a pension, a healthcare plan, all the things entrepreneurs don't have. But also a stable life in Calgary, which is definitely what I thought I saw for myself. But I guess life had other plans for me. As the famous saying go, when you're busy making plans, life happens, and that's what happened to me too. I will say I saw this opportunity while working at my parents' stores on the wholesale side of the business, that there was an opportunity for good quality spirits at a fair, everyday low price for private label spirits in their stores for their wholesale customers, meaning their bars, restaurants, hotels, like conference centers, things that people don't know or care what the brand of the vodka is, for example, because they're not physically picking it up from the shelf themselves. So kind of that mass-produced but good quality was what I was thinking that I could do for my parents' stores. I had, of course, data and research and numbers from their business to know what the math might look like. And so,
was there a moment where you presented this idea for your
100%,
dad?
100%. After I learned and took information from him, I definitely presented it to him. And his thought was like, okay, great. However, how is it a win-win for me, not just you? Like, I'm always around to help my kids, but then if I buy from you, I have to stop buying from, Crown Royal and Diageo and, Constellation, all those other big companies that I get other benefits from too. And so there was this, okay, what is the real business plan here? not just like a fun hobby. And I think that most people forget that, right, when they're building businesses, is that what problem are you solving? Great businesses solve problems. So what problem am I solving for my dad? And what problem am I solving for those hotels and bars and restaurants too, in order to make sure that they are picking mine amongst the thousands that they have the opportunity to buy from. And so once I figured out those two things, and then how do I make money and keep some on the side, for this side hustle, which I thought would be fun while I'm, studying engineering and becoming an engineer, that would be the secret sauce. And so once I figured out that, which didn't take too long actually, one thing I tell people to do always is, and which I did, is ask a lot of questions. That you have to and not assume that you know everything. You know some things, and everybody still does. You know some things, but you don't know what you don't know. And the thing is that you do have to always ask a lot more questions and discover once you're able to ask questions of people. I went and interviewed tons of bars and restaurant managers. I definitely interviewed my parents, but also their managers, other liquor stores, to find out, okay, were other people doing, and where was the niche where I could be, have something differentiated in the marketplace. And that was the basis of the business plan. I knew it would change, as it did, but it had to start somewhere. And I think people get stuck up on getting it perfect before they start. And that you only know how you're going to turn right and left after you start, after you actually have something to give somebody. The rest is all just talk before that.
Progress over perfection.
Totally.
Yeah.
Sure, some things need to be perfect in some industries before you get out. But not most of them. Most of them have to start with some sort of MVP, and then you can figure it out as you go. But you do have to start with something, and that's where we started with the 99.
Would you say that a lot of, those early days were instinct coupled with research and data? And where did you get that? Like, it sounds like it kind of came to you. Is it something you can learn, or is it something you just
No, I think everybody has gut instinct, and I think everybody has to be able to listen to that and then say, okay, what do I do with it now? Yes, research for sure. People think that, I myself, but investors in general, dragons, that we're very risk-taking, and we jump in with both feet. Absolutely not. It's just the exact opposite. I'm actually pretty risk adverse. I will say, I know it might not seem like that from the outside, but it is lots of spreadsheets, a lot of data, a lot of research, a lot of what can I control and what can I not control, and what am I willing to give up and sacrifice. I knew that very early on, and still to this day, that I only risk what I'm willing to sacrifice and give up, and whether that be time, money, energy, reputation, a variety of things. But you do have to go in it with eyes wide open. I'm never one that jumps in with both feet, eyes closed. Never.
Now, listening to your story, it was clear that, you had obstacle after obstacle after obstacle, from regulations to big giant competitors to, so many moments where you could have said, you know what, maybe not, I don't want to keep going, right? So this show is called Challenger X because we want to highlight people like you who have really kept going, obstacle after. So if I go back to the liquor business that you started accelerating, talk to us about some of the obstacles you faced and like how you overcame them.
Yeah, so the obstacles were all the time and still are. We are, even now, 25 years later, the 9th largest brewery and distillery in North America. Like I say, I got 8 to go. But I will say the obstacles are constant. And in any industry, because everybody always has competitors. And anybody who tells you they don't are lying or just aren't opening their eyes to know who their competitors are. And so we had a lot of obstacles in the beginning. One, no matter what I did on a personal level, obstacles were 3. Young, I was 19. Indian, well, woman, definitely all three things did not look like anything in the liquor industry back then, or to be honest, still. And so it was definitely one of those things. People didn't take me seriously, didn't think I knew what I was talking about, didn't think that I'd have anything better than anybody else walking in before or after me. And usually you're selling to bigger companies, governments, organizations that have relationships with big companies that have been around for decades, if not centuries, in the liquor industry for a long time. So breaking in to try to make a relationship, but then also providing something that they want to buy and trust, and then coming back for innovation and a variety of things. So that, and then the outsiders, which were the competitors, constantly lobbying against us with governments to get policy and regulations changed. And then you're fighting it on the marketplace. They had massive marketing budgets, salespeople, like the list goes on and on, all the things I didn't have. So one thing I discovered and have still done 2.5 decades later is the fact that I don't focus on the disadvantages. I don't focus on what I don't have, because I can't change a lot of those things. So I focus on what I have. What are my advantages? What do I have in my toolkit that they don't? And what I discovered is those three things that I said earlier are actually going to make me stand out. So why not stand out for the right reasons? And that's what I'm going to do. And then the other things that I have is I'm nimble, because I'm not a behemoth company. So I can adjust to trends quicker. I can get them smaller runs quicker. I can do things in a different way that they can. I don't need 12 months to get a label or a name produced or something approved. And so why not do the things that the other guys can't do, and start building a reputation for myself with that, doing it faster, cheaper, and just better in my own way and my definition of better, and build a reputation on that and build a business on that to begin with. And that's what we did and what we still do. If a customer comes to me, a retailer or a brand comes to me rather than my competitor, everybody in my organization knows they better do it faster, quicker, and cheaper than our competitors. And there better not be excuses for that. It better be at least half the time. Even as we've gotten bigger, that has still been one of the keys to our success, is the fact that how do we do this now, not long timelines, because other people have more advantages than I do.
One of the common themes I see with successful entrepreneurs like you is speed. Speed is sort of the great equalizer when you're dealing with bigger. So is that something you're still sort of intentionally, because as you grow and become more successful, I have a saying around here, we say, no matter how big we are, we'll never become like a bank, right?
Yes.
Like we have to move quickly, like it's day one. Talk to me about that. How do you maintain that, agility?
It gets harder because, of course, there's lots of different layers that, and people start putting, protectors around the different sectors of the business. But I will say, just like anything, then we have metrics and targets and incentives, and you do have to get a bit more creative. But people have to know that they're working towards something that is greater, that we're all working towards the same goal. So one thing I find in my personal life and my professional life is communication. The more you can communicate with people to tell them what the goal is, the more everybody can get on board to get there, and come up with creative ideas. By no means am I the one, or my brother are the one that have the greatest ideas by any means, but it is about taking everybody together to say, okay, this is a team. And that has, we started with that, and we still try to do that. Of course, just like anything, we've had a lot of things thrown our way. COVID wasn't easy, right now we're dealing with tariffs on aluminum. That is how our product gets to people and so like there's always challenges. One thing I say, being an entrepreneur is not easy for those who think it is and only see the greatest highlights on social media and in the newspapers and in magazines. That is the highlight reel. That is not the day-to-day.
That's not the game.
But you're able to achieve some pretty great things that we're able to look back, take a moment, because it's a quick moment. I'm not one that looks back. I'm a true believer in the rear view is smaller than the windshield, because you're going that way, not that way. So I don't look back too often, but once in a blue moon I do and say, oh my God, we did that.
Right.
And I think that that's
so
pretty
important to reflect from time to time.
From time to time, I think it's important to learn from it, but also to say, hey, like pat on the back, we did that.
Yeah.
But I will say I wasn't raised that way, so I'm trying to like change that with my own kids.
Yeah.
But I think that that's also what drives you. I'm a very optimistic person.
Yes.
It is a mindset thing for sure.
Yeah.
But I also like my life, and one of my mottos is that, you know, fear is temporary and regret is forever. That you can sit and you can say, okay, shoulda, coulda, woulda, but that doesn't really help you move forward. And that, we're all scared of a lot of things, trust me, scared of a lot of things. But I always have believed that what is the worst that is going to happen? And I always write those down and get those out and then be like, okay, if that's the worst, I'm able to accept that.
Right.
Like that rarely is going to happen.
Right.
But if it does, I can accept that. So go for it. And I will say most of the time, you know, it's either been an experience that I value, met some great people along the way, or it's worked out. Not to say that there's not a ton of things that haven't failed, but none of those things have broke me, all those failures. I will write a long book one day on the failures, not the successes.
Yes. And so important, you know, we have a lot of entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs who watch the show, and, you know, there's a lot of fear right now with so many things that could go wrong, like banks aren't lending. There's, you know, concerns over everything from tariffs to, you know, demand. Like, you know, what would you say to entrepreneurs? Because obviously, you know, we need those entrepreneurs to build, you know, the next generation of businesses.
I would say where there are challenges and obstacles, there's always opportunity. Some of the greatest businesses, if you do some research, you will discover were built in tough times. And that is when often there are bigger problems to be solved. And I think that now is the time to do that. Yes, you might have to get creative on your funding. Yes, you might have to get creative as to who your partners and or you know, teammates might be, but that doesn't mean that it's impossible by any means. And so I think that when things are too easy, people get a bit lazy. And when it's too easy, it doesn't last often either, because you haven't figured out all of the things that can necessarily go wrong and how you're going to get over them. And so I will say that I truly believe that this is the time for a lot of industries to start something and figure it out. Because if you can figure it out now, when things get a bit softer, whether it be with interest rates or government policies or tariffs or all the politics and all the things going on right now, inflation, you'll be okay.
Do you always look for opportunities in crisis?
Yes, because there's always lots to be had. But I will say there's always this push and pull. Opportunities for sure, but I'm also one that always tells everybody in my organization, I have to tell myself this all the time, is that you can do everything, but not at once. So you do need to focus. And so, there is lots of opportunities always, and it's easy to see what other people are doing, and I could do that, and I could do that. But at the end of the day, if you spread yourself too thin, you will do nothing well. And so it is always about making sure that you're doubling down on things that you and your organization are really good at, that you have talent and skill at, and or you know how to bring those resources to the table. And so I think opportunities, but within your skill set and in something that you can absorb and not be totally
where you have an advantage.
Because it's easy to say yes to so many different things because you see opportunities, but what do you really think you can be the winner at?
Right.
That is what you need to get into, not just let me do it because I can say that that I might win. I think that you have to play in the games where you think you absolutely have advantages and you could be the winner.
Right. Let's talk about Dragon's Den. Okay. How did you get involved in Dragon's Den, and how has it changed you?
So, like so many things in my life, people ask me, like, not only about Dragons Den, but the boards I sit on and all the other hats I wear, you know, in the Army and honorary lieutenant colonel, like a variety of things. I will say it's about having great people around you that see your potential and or think that you might be great at something. Because most of us, and I am no different, really are on this hamster wheel that our days, our weeks, our months are so scheduled that we don't really see what else can be done, or we don't imagine how we could be in other rooms and or contribute to other things. And so, you know, I have had some really great people around me, whether they be mentors or whether they just be networks that I've built, because I absolutely spend a lot of time, and I think that is absolutely invaluable, no matter who you are, where you are, what age you are, to network, to go to events, to learn about the things happening around you, to get involved in so many other ways, because you meet some pretty fantastic people that are either you learn from and or lifelong friendships that you don't know when you might need their advice and or you know, a tap on the shoulder from. And so when it comes to Dragons Den, I was never the face of our company for a variety of reasons. My brother was. He's younger, way willing to do the crazy ads that we had. I was, you know, had gotten married, and I wanted a little bit of a quieter life as far as being out in public in the beer industry, especially, you know, from trade shows and a variety of things. So he was the face of our company for sure. And that was purposeful. And then we had been profiled on CBC Venture, which was a very popular show for a very long time. And into our attempted entrance the first time into the Ontario beer market. And it was a doozy. And so the producer of that show kept in touch with us because really wanted to know and was just personally like fascinated by the two of us actually dreaming that we could go up against Molson Labatt in Ontario, which is a duopoly. And oh my God, like it was, she was kind of like, oh my God, are you guys insane? Like, talk about the naivety, which I think everybody should have some naivety. Otherwise, you don't think like you can go up against anybody. And so she kept in touch with us, followed our story, and was like, we did very, very well. And so she called me at my parents' house because when they profiled us on CBC Venture, I was still living at home. Because we were early days, like we were young, we had just started, we were, and so that's the phone number CBC had. And this is many years later now, this is like 15 years in now. Of course, I didn't live at home, but luck have it, I had two young girls, one, just barely 1 and barely 3 years old, and I was at my parents' house that afternoon, and the phone rings, and I pick it up. And it is that same producer from all those years ago, from like 13 years prior at CBC Venture. And he says to me, you know what, Manjit, we've been following your story. We'd love for you to come. It was a Thursday afternoon, to come and audition for Dragons Den. We have 3 available seats this season. And I said, what? Are you kidding? And he said, yeah. And I'm like, you're sure you don't want like my brother? Because he's the face of the company. They're like, no, we'd like you to come and audition. And I was like, okay, I'll think about it. And I hung up. And that night at dinner at my parents' house, I like, casually mentioned it to everybody. And everybody was like, what? And I knew, Canada's a small world, I knew almost all the past Reagans from the business community for a very long time. And I knew their experience and how much they loved it. And I knew a lot more than, and I was like, that's a lot of time. And I had to move to Toronto. And also I'd be catapulted onto a stage where, like, I don't know.
They're public now.
Yeah. And so my brother says to me, are you crazy? First of all, they haven't said yes to you. Get over yourself. Like, go for the experience. But why wouldn't you? There's nobody that's looked like you, had a young family like you, like been your age, like anything like you on that stage that can tell. And we were investing in lots of other businesses by then, that if you there's a lot of people that could resonate and reflect on your story that, you know, for your own girls, if you can see it, you can be it. And I thought, okay, interesting. So my brother knows me well enough. I called them back and I said, sure, I'll come. They asked me to come on Monday. And I said, sure, I'll come. And my brother knows me well enough to be like, you're not just going by yourself. I'm sending a chaperone. So he sent my dad with me because he's like, you'll probably go to Toronto, go do some other work and then come back. Right. And I was like, yeah, maybe. So I went, and then, yes, my chaperone, my father, made sure that I went to, there was 12 other amazing Canadians. They do that every year.
Right.
And I was like, oh my God, okay, like all these people, I knew them, I knew their businesses. I was like, there's no chance in hell. But one thing that gave me was this fire and this like weight lifted off my shoulder to be like, just be myself. Yeah. Just have fun for the next 2 hours. They're going to throw 3 pitches at us and do it. And so I will say, you talked about gut instinct earlier, and my gut instinct always is to be myself. As soon as you start having imposter syndrome or pretending you're something or someone else that you want to be, first of all, everybody can see that. But second of all, you're really not being authentic to who and what your beliefs are. Right. And so those next 2 hours, I had a lot of fun. And I was really myself. And well, 4 days later, they called me and said, on Friday, and said, would you come? That was the end of March. Would you come in 6 weeks to be our newest dragon? And I said, you're kidding. Okay, let me try to figure this out. Company-wise, kids-wise, family-wise. And so everybody in the company and my family were like, we will figure this out and we will all be there and we will do this. And that was 11 years ago.
Wow.
And so it has been an amazing journey and a ride, I will say, for me, but also for the companies that I've been involved with, dozens and dozens of them, to help them, grow, expand, bloom, and the opposite. Some of them figure out this isn't for them, and or this product isn't ready for the marketplace, and or there's other issues. So not everything is a success by any means, but it has been quite a cool journey to be on, and it made me involved in a lot of other industries that otherwise I never would have. But then also I'll say for my family and for a lot of, for my own girls, for my nieces, but also for a lot of other young people I get to meet, no matter where I am, from airports to conferences to, it doesn't matter, to hear young people say that, hey, I didn't see anybody like you, to say that, oh, I can get an education, and then I can do 10 other things. And it can be a career, and it can be fulfilling, and I can have my own opinion, and I can be my own person, and that can still be okay. Like one day, once I'm off the show, I will write about the challenges too that I had within the CBC. First things first, the challenges on what I was going to wear and look like. It was like, I was like, if I'm going to be authentic to myself, that's why you said yes to me. I need to look like myself. Right. And that was an interesting week-long battle. So I think that no matter what you do, I think your gut tells you whether or not it is something that is true to you, but also that, hopefully that you can create a platform, which we, I think, all want to do, that can help some others along the way. And I hope I've been able to do that.
I think you being on that show really broke a lot of ceilings. Certainly in our household, my daughter Karina, who asked me to tell you you're her favorite dragon, and she was so excited because you're a role model for so many, young South Asian females who are getting into business, but also becoming more public profile. Can they do it to gain that self-confidence? So,
I never think of myself as a role model because I'm not perfect by any means. Trust me, ask my husband. But I will say, I think we all need to try just to be good at a couple things. And when we're honest about what we're not also. And so, I'll fully say on the show, I've tried to invest in tech to go up against Michelle. I have failed miserably. Nobody ever wants my money. I don't even offer anymore. Thank God every app I feel is developed now. They don't really come in. But I will say, you learn to learn from others too, and then take, it is something that I love to listen to people to say, okay, what is your take on some things? And I have to always remind people it's factual entertainment. So we don't know anything about anybody that comes in. We are not told anything. We're not given a dossier.
No prep documents.
No preps, nothing. They do go to extreme lengths actually to keep it secret from us. And so when they walk through the door, all we know is their name, because so many times they forget their name. They're so nervous. They get 45 minutes with us. And they're not allowed to have papers. They're not allowed to have call a friend. Neither are we. We have phones, but we're not allowed to talk to anybody. And so it's just us and them. And they're allowed demos, they're allowed to talk to us. And that's it. And so then what happens is those 45 minutes get edited down to like 6 or 7 minutes if they make the show. Only about 70% of who comes in makes the show. As in airs on TV. And most of what you don't see is like that math. We're actually figuring out so much about their balance sheet. They're like, how do they make money? What are their margins? Like, where could we put them in? What do we know? Who could we connect them with? Like, we're figuring out their business plans actually ourselves. And then sure, there's the competitive factor sometimes too. We're human at the end of the day. But in the experience itself really is something unlike anything those pictures or us get in a real life, because you are in that bubble with no distractions for 45 minutes with those entrepreneurs and those founders. And so it is a really neat experience in order to be in, not only for ourselves, but for them too, to get 5 or 6 people that have their undivided attention and that are giving them advice, giving them their opinion, sometimes involving them or not. Sometimes we're often debating. And it also just shows, I think, people sitting on their sofa, as was I for the 9 years, 10 years that I was not on the show. I started in 2010, going to my 11th season. And so what is your opinion of that, sitting on the sofa at home? Do you understand? And I think it's taught so many people business. It's taught what investors look like. It's taught them math. It's taught them valuations. It's taught that what is that secret sauce? What is the potential, or what is it not? And often where they're third sober thought, because they have family and friends often that tell them what they want to hear and maybe not what is the truth, because we have no relationship with any of them beforehand. We don't know any of them. Sometimes we've bumped into their products maybe coincidentally in the marketplace, but we don't know anything about them. So we all start on the same level.
Playing field. It's great. And, from the outside, it's hugely educational if you're looking for those, nuggets of wisdom as you go through that. Now, from your perspective, we have a lot of budding entrepreneurs on the show, as I said. What are some of the things that you look for in founders, in new companies? Yeah,
so I love the question because it's about founders. It's not about what widget they're selling. It's not about the product or the service, because we have been around long enough to know that it's not going to look like that in 6 months or 24 months if you're doing something right. And this might not be the one that works. It might be the next. So we're betting on the jockey, not on the horse. And that is something that we are always looking for. Are you coachable? Will you handle our money, our reputation, our teams well? Do you know what you're good at, and do you know what you need help at? And are you somebody that we really feel can get through the ups and downs, especially the downs and the challenges of being an entrepreneur? And are you willing to put in the effort? Are you willing to put in the work? Nothing was built overnight, and nothing was built by just working 9 to 5. I'm sorry, nobody wants to hear that, but that's the truth. And so if you want me and my team to work for you 80 hours a week, you better be ready to work that much or more, because it is your company still. It is not my company. And I think too many people sometimes think that we have this magic wand that we're going to say, oh, we're going to knight you and you're going to become a millionaire tomorrow. No, we can help open some doors. We can give you some opinions, but then you got to go and execute on it. Like, you're telling me your dreams now, but then where's the execution part? Because dreams just stay dreams otherwise. And so we are always looking for founders, but then we're also looking for people who can have a great pitch as a transfer of passion. So I need to know that you care
that's so
about
powerful.
this business and this product. I don't really give a crap if I care about it. Whether I like it or I'll use it or I am passionate about it, that doesn't matter. It matters about you having that passion for it, because I'm not working on it, or my team is not working on it day in and day out. And so I need to feel that, and that is important. And a lot of people forget that. And also the other thing is, you have to, in any pitch to anybody anywhere, answer who, what, where, when, why, and how.
Right.
Like, any investor wants to know the answers to those questions quickly, but they need to know.
Right.
Because if you don't know, well then, like, good luck, right?
Yeah.
And I think so many people think that, oh, well, that's pretty obvious. Well, yes and no. You'd be surprised how many people, when you start digging down into those basic questions, actually haven't figured out or spent the time to think about those things.
In the last few minutes, I want to talk about what you're doing now. You're involved with the armed forces, philanthropy. Tell us what you're involved in. You've got a busy schedule.
Yeah, I wear a lot of hats, but that's the fun part. I think that that I get to bring all of that knowledge and that experience to the other tables that I'm at. And also it gives me a wholesome view of what's happening in Canada and North America, for sure. But I don't always know, and that's a fun part. I don't always know what's next for me. And I think that is what I'm always excited about.
That's awesome.
I am always learning, and I'm always open to it. And I think that creates a lot of opportunities for me in my personal life. And I think that everybody should say yes more than they say no. I'm so sick and tired of the people who say no to everything. Protect your time, protect your mind space, protect your energy, protect your... If you're going to protect and say no, all you're going to do is sit at home and do nothing. Right. So you know what? Say yes more. For goodness sake, say yes more. What is the worst that's going to happen? You're going to waste 2 hours of your life, but I guarantee it won't be a waste. You will be able to say, hey, I saw something new. I met somebody new. Right. I ate or drank or I did something that either I liked or I didn't like. And there's value in not knowing and knowing something that you weren't good at or didn't like, or like, as long as it's not dangerous. I will say yes more. It's how I have done so much and continue to do so many things, because I say yes a lot. I have no background in the Army. My family has no background in the military. Nobody, nothing. Most is my brother is a hunter. I'm a vegetarian. Similar as we are very different. And so when the Canadian Armed Forces asked me, first of all, I thought it was like a Russian, hacker trying to hack in to my system by asking me. But I responded and said, yeah, let's chat more. I knew nothing. And that was what they wanted. They wanted a civilian to help them figure out some of the problems that they're having, but also on esprit de corps, kind of, with the troops and recruitment. And it's been an amazing 3 years, and I'm excited to serve another 3 to really, not only for myself, I have learned so much, oh my goodness, about the great and the brave men and women that not only fight for our country, but also in this country when things happen, floods, fires, like those reservists are there for us. But the discipline that the Army provides, the great people, oh my God, I think my husband has more great friendships now than I do, because he spends a lot of time with the. So like I say, everything that I'm always involved in, I say yes and I figure it out as I go. But I bring my best to the table. And I think that everybody should do that. I don't think saying no really helps you. I think that just closes you off to not knowing what could be an experience in your life. Because those days of our parents and grandparents where they worked in one career for 40 years and then retired are long, long gone. Somebody told, one of my daughter's teachers told me the other day that the average right now is 10 different careers a person has between graduation of high school and retirement. That is a lot. And so how do you know what's next if you're not out there?
You're not exploring.
And exposed and having great people pull you in different ways. People ask me all the time, young people especially, How do you get on boards? Well, you start somewhere. You volunteer. I started on the United Way board. I started at my kids' school board. I started to learn these things when I was young. And then, what am I good at? I took courses. I take courses for everything still.
Wow.
I think that that's important too, not just to know that everybody doesn't wake up and understand how to do things. You have to put the time and the energy into it. And it is something that you have to invest in. And I think that is the key to any young person's future, but at any age and stage. I'm 44 right now, and I don't think by any means I am done changing paths and hats and careers, because I'm still investing in a lot of the talents that I want. Or that I admire in others. And I think that is something that keeps you driven, keeps you waking up and optimistic about what's new in the world, but also on the forefront of what are the opportunities.
In our final moments, we are going through some unprecedented times. We have tariffs announced the last few days. We have a very high level of tension in the economy, in the political circles. You're a very accomplished Canadian entrepreneur, from humble beginnings to who you are now. What would you like to say to Canadians in business, and how to process this, and how to think about, some of the messages coming through the newswires?
All I would say is that I don't have a crystal ball either. I don't know what's happening tomorrow. And yes, they affect everybody. But the last couple of years, a variety of things have turned not only politics, the world upside down. So all I can say is that there'll be more to come, no matter who is the leader of any country.
Right.
But one thing I will say is that not to dwell on the negative and what you have no control over. There's a lot of stressed out people right now, and I will say you can plan, but you got to know that those plans may change. But what you can do is be optimistic about the future. You can say that I will figure it out. And that I will talk to as many people that I can, but not only dwell on the negative. I think too many people are talking too much about the things that are broken and the things that are not going right. And so I think that you have to also, yes, have a voice. I use this word lightly because I'm not one that likes this word, but I hate people who complain and then don't do anything about it. If you do not go and vote, you have no right to complain. I am sorry. We live in a country that we are very privileged. Don't ever forget that. We are very privileged to have the opportunity to vote, men and women. And so I think that if you don't exercise that right, please don't complain. And if you don't educate those politicians at every level, municipal, provincial, federal, you can't expect them to know everything about your industry, about your needs, about your wants, about your challenges, about your obstacles. They're human at the end of the day. They put their hand up. I truly believe when they put their hand up to make this country and their community better. I won't say what happens to some along the way, but they are human, and they can only know. I know a lot of politicians at every level, and I will say they have huge portfolios. It changes. They need people around them to give them advice, give them information, educate them about, like I say, the good, the bad, the ugly. Make sure you don't forget the good too, though. And so I will say bumpy times ahead, but opportunities in those bumpy times. And I'm sure, I think that this is the state of the new world, to be quite honest. I think those days, pre-COVID days, are long behind us, where we can just say that these are the rules and they will be the rules going forward.
Yeah, it's going to be unpredictable. Thank you so much. I could talk to you for hours. We learned so much. It feels like a masterclass in leadership and entrepreneurship. Manjit, it's an honor and pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Jerome.